Hey, welcome back to the Nonprofit Leadership Studio. I hope everyone's doing well, recovering from Hurricane Harvey. Another great leader from the Houston community today. We have with us Ping Sun, who is the wife of the president over at Rice University, but a leader in her own right here in our community on many boards, speaking on leadership, and a good buddy of mine. Ping, welcome. Welcome to the program and welcome to the studio.
Thank you, Bob.
And so starting off, the same question that I ask many leaders who are sitting in your seat, Ping. If you're writing a book on leadership, what are some of the chapters for you?
Okay. Well, first of all, I have to clarify something.
Yes, okay, please do.
I don't view myself as a leader.
Okay.
I view myself as a participant,
Okay.
as a servant to our community. But if I were to write a book on leadership, but I think I will start with my 3 Ps.
Okay, what are your Ps?
Well, not that my name starts with a P. So the 3 Ps are, the first P is passion. I feel whatever you do, you need to find your passion. But finding the passion alone is not enough.
Right.
So you need a second P. The second P is preparation. So you need to work hard and prepare yourself. And even if you prepare and prepare and prepare, sometimes you don't succeed, right? And so you need the third P, that is perseverance.
Oh, wow.
So to me, those 3 Ps have helped me along a lot.
And those are sort of 3 Ps that can help anyone along in a lot of things, right? What is your passion, Ping?
My passion is education and also helping others. And I feel very fortunate that given my husband's position, we are at Rice University. And I'm also quite involved in our community, so I have the good luck of serving our community by serving on various nonprofit organization boards.
And you have a distinguished law career, right? You came out of Columbia Law School, you worked at some of the top law firms around. So moving to Houston from New York City, from the law environment, obviously a great opportunity in terms of coming to a great community like Houston, but how did you set out to become a servant to the community?
This goes back to the people of Houston. When we first came, the people welcomed us in with open arms. And I feel so grateful to the Houstonians and to people at Rice. So I thought, what can I do? I want to participate in this community. That's the other thing about Houston. People really don't care where you're from, what your parents do. They care about you. If you want to participate, if you have some good ideas, they welcome that. They welcome you in. That's also the reason why I want to give back to our community.
And do you remember, what were some of the first boards that you joined when you first came to Houston?
Yes, the first board was Texas Children's Hospital. And then after that is United Way. I served on United Way for, normally it was 2-3 year terms. I served 6 years. They asked me to serve additional 2 years because I was on the executive committee. So I did that. So after 8 years, you have to step down. So I stepped down for a year. Now I'm back on United Way board.
Wow.
So my second tour of duty.
And when you serve on these boards, Ping, talk about that experience a little bit, because being a leader on a board, right? You have a board and it's really sort of, especially at a place like Texas Children's, United Way, these are all leaders that are sitting at the table. And how do you act as a leader amongst leaders? I mean, what is your experience with that?
Well, I don't feel like leader among the leaders, but I feel that if before I go to the meeting, I prepare, I read through the materials and come up with questions. And at the meeting, I'm never shy, for asking questions. And because I feel if you want to contribute, you need to fully participate by asking questions and be active. And if they need some advice, and you try to come up with some solutions to a problem. And so I think the other leaders in the room, I'm sure they all feel very similar to how I feel. At that moment, we don't really feel, okay, this person is the CEO of this organization, this person.
Everyone's just a buddy in the room, aren't
exactly.
they? Yeah,
we are
really
all
nice.
there rolling up the sleeves and trying to help a great organization to do its work.
Now let's take a couple steps back and tell us about your background. I mean, you grew up, did you grow up in Shanghai?
Shanghai is my hometown, but I grew up in Tianjin, a seaport city very close to Beijing. And it was, when I was growing up, it was during the Cultural Revolution. And so the education was interrupted. And at that time, you didn't really learn math or Chinese. You learned the Chairman Mao, the little red book. But I had a teacher. She was very special. She wanted to teach, and we were very lucky.
How did the Cultural Revolution affect your family?
In a big way. I remember one day I was playing outside with my friends, and then I got home. I saw red guards running around throughout the house, and my grandmother was sitting in the middle of the room, and a red guard just dragged me and took me to in front of my grandmother and pointed at her and said, "She is the enemy of the people." I was so confused. I thought, how can my grandmother be the enemy of the people? She always taught me to be nice to others. Whenever we have beggars coming through, she will always send me to go and give them food. And she taught me to always present the food with both my hands to show my respect for them, because these are the people, they are going through hard times, and we need to have respect. We need to have compassion for them. And well, it turns out her only crime is to be married to my grandfather, who was an aerospace engineer. My grandfather, and along with other engineers and pilots, they flew planes back to China in 1949, right after the founding of the People's Republic of China. And so this group of people was giving high salary, but during the Cultural Revolution, they were all accused being spies.
Oh, really?
So they were kept at the company. They were asked to write confession, but there was nothing to confess because my grandfather was not a spy. So the Red Guards went through the house and took lots of our property away, my grandmother's jewelry, even my children's books they took away. And so life was pretty hard at that time. Thanks to Premier Zhou Enlai, my hero. And he made a statement. He said, we should not be treating these people like that. They contributed to building of our country. And so after that, life became better.
It got better,
yes.
And then you went through, did you start university then in China?
Well, then, at that time, there was no university in a way. The university they had was, the students were picked from factories, farms, and army. And so some of them only had elementary level education, so it was very hard for professors to teach. And I was very lucky. At that time, I was almost about going into middle school. And one day, the headmaster of school came and see me and said, Ping, today you need to go and take a test. I thought, oh, maybe just I was chosen to take the test on behalf of the school. So I went, took the test, and then a few days later, the principal came to see me again and said, Ping, you need to go for a physical. I thought, I was healthy. Why do I need a physical? So I was taken to the hospital. in China, you call people older than you uncles and aunts. And so I saw the nurse. I said, Auntie, you know, I have terrible tonsil problems. She just laughed. She knew I was nervous. And she said, oh, don't be afraid. You are so lucky. You are, you know, if you are chosen, you will be going to the Tianjin Foreign Language School to learn a foreign language. I thought, oh, this is a good thing. So I got home and wrote a letter to my parents. My parents were working in some remote place, not in the city. So by the time their letter came back saying that this is a good thing, I was already in the school.
Wow.
I was lucky I was assigned to learn English.
Yeah. And then from there, what happened next?
From there, I graduated after 5 years, and then that was the tail end of the Cultural Revolution. And they started the college entrance exam. At that time, I was already assigned to work at an import and export corporation. And so I was among the first group taking the exam in 1977. It was basically 2 generations taking the exam, my uncle's generation and my generation. So 1 out of 100 people who took the exam was admitted into a university.
Wow. And then how long before you came to the United States?
I got into Beijing Languages University, and I was already a junior. I decided to apply to universities in the States. And I applied to both Princeton and Yale because they offer scholarships. And I was very fortunate. I got into Princeton. They gave me a full scholarship, and they even sent me an airline ticket on Pan Am.
On Pan Am, back in the day, right?
Yes.
And how difficult was it leaving China for you and coming to the United States? What was that like for you?
It's twofold. The first, actually, at the very beginning, I didn't even know I could come. Since I was the first group of students going to college after the Cultural Revolution, whatever you do, you have to get permission from the Ministry of Education. So I went to the Ministry of Education to ask for permission to leave China. They told me no. So that the 3 Ps came in. But of course, I never take no for an answer. So every other day I will be riding my bicycle going to the Ministry of Education, trying to persuade them why they should let me go. After 3 months, they were fed up with me. They said, okay, you can go. And even that, with the Chinese passport, I didn't know whether I could get visa.
Oh, yeah.
And it was very hard to get visa at the time. I remember going to the embassy. The line was so long. Eventually, I got in, filled out the forms, got to the visa officer. His first question was, I'm confused. How come a baby is going abroad? I thought, oh my God. Of course, you know, instead of my birth year, I put on that year. Of course, I was only 6 months old. But without missing a beat, I said, but she's a very smart baby. She got a full scholarship to Princeton. And humor works. So he laughed, he stamped my passport and said, good luck.
Oh, wow.
That's how I came.
Wow.
But of course, arriving in America, there was the culture shock. And I had never seen so many cars on the street, and also in class. Even though I learned English, but I had problems with culture, you know, like the professor of economics was talking about supply and demand of Budweiser. For the whole class, I had no clue what Budweiser was.
Yeah.
But after the class, I had the nerve of going up to the professor and asked him, what is this Budweiser? I knew it was some kind of product.
But you just didn't know what. Right. So when you look at, you know, your background in China, and you saw leadership at work in many different forms, and then you see leadership in the United States, help us understand, you know, what's the difference between a stereotypical Chinese leader and a stereotypical American leader? What are the big cultural differences there?
The big cultural difference to me is all the Chinese leaders like Xi Jinping, the German, they started from the very bottom. They take Xi Jinping, for example. He started in a village, right? So he was the head of the youth group, and then the head of the village, and then moving up to the county, and then to the city level, and then to the province level, and then to the central government. You can go through every one of the leader in China. They all have this kind of trajectory.
They sort of had to work their way up.
Yes.
There's a lot of perseverance there.
Exactly. So they accumulate the experiences. In the U.S., the current president is a good example that he never, Mr. Trump never really run for public office, never held a position in public office. Yet he won the presidency. So that's a big fundamental difference between the two countries.
And when you see on some of the nonprofits that you're on, and you see that CEO, those leaders, and you see how they operate as a nonprofit CEO, how would you imagine the equivalent type of group? I mean, it'd probably be a governmental agency at this point in China, but how do you imagine the differences there in that type of leadership?
You mean the profit versus nonprofit?
No, like how a Chinese...
Chinese.
Yeah, Chinese versus a nonprofit leadership, yeah.
Well, there are some nonprofit organizations in China as well. But also they are mostly tested along the way as well. And but of course you will say, but what about the young people? This way it will be very hard for a young person to become a leader. And so they will become leader, but just at different levels. And the good thing about the U.S. model is that, the young people, if you have the ability and you can become a leader at a very early age, much more so than China.
So there's sort of you feel like there's a greater ability for entrepreneurs to be successful, whether they're nonprofit or otherwise, in the United States than in China?
I think, originally, at the beginning, I think the U.S. model was good. People can succeed better in the U.S., but now I think China is catching up.
Yeah.
And if you go to China now, just the speed of their development is astounding. A few years ago, they didn't even use credit cards. It was very hard for them to use credit cards. Now, they don't even need credit cards. Everybody using the iPhone to pay. And very soon, they don't even need the iPhone, just the facial recognition. And so I have to say, now, even though it's still a single party system, but it's no longer the old communist system anymore. When you go to China, you will feel that people seem happy. Their living standard has really improved
significantly.
Drastically. Yes, and I guess it's good and bad. Now you hardly see any bicycles. You see cars all over the place, the congestion too. But there are quite a number of entrepreneurs in China now as well.
I think it's, having been to China, and you go there a lot now, but it just seemed like the pace of change is much more rapid in China.
Yes.
It seems like there's a more openness to adapting new ideas and to new things that make life better for people in a sense.
Definitely, definitely.
Do you think that will open up opportunities for more nonprofits because China will see how the nonprofit sector has expanded around the world, and that do you see that changing, that nonprofit side? Yeah,
I do see it. I think they have they have culture type of organizations, like Asia Society has an office in Shanghai, and Red Cross is also in China. So they do have some kind of NGOs.
Yeah. When you look at the landscape in Houston of nonprofits, are there some nonprofits that you think, oh, those seem to be particularly well run? I mean, are there some sort of favorites for you that you've noticed?
Of course, the first comes to mind is Children at Risk.
I don't. Okay, I'm going to have to start saying outside.
Well, I have to say United Way
Yeah.
is really quite amazing organization, or Texas Children's as well. And we are very fortunate to be in Houston, that there are quite a number of nonprofit organizations, and we all have the same goal, and trying to make our community a better place for all of us.
Yeah. There's some extraordinarily well-run places, that's for sure. I'm going to go ping to the Twitterverse here and see what people have tweeted in.
Okay.
To see what they're saying. So this is Monica Munoz wants to know, education is your passion, and when you look at education here in Texas, what seems to be the area of education that seems most in need of leadership?
Well, I think early childhood.
Yeah. Which is an area that you and I have worked on together.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, early matters. If we don't take care of children when they are young and give them, pave a better path for them, it's harder for them to catch up once they are in school.
Yeah, and we've had a difficult time, I think, in Texas, sort of persuading sort of our legislature that early education is such an important area to focus on.
Well, I guess we have to work harder to persuade them.
Yeah,
I know
we do.
it is tough, because these are children, they are voiceless. So I feel like we have to speak on their behalf. If you're an adult, if you're a senior and you vote, so legislators tend to listen to you. When you are a child and you don't vote, so they probably feel they don't have to listen to you that much. So it depends on all of us to speak for our children.
Absolutely. Luis Morales wants to know, how do you think your life would have been different had you not come to the United States?
Oh.
Isn't that an interesting question?
It is a very good question. It would be quite different.
Yeah.
And you know, now when I go back, I often get together with my classmates, and some of them have been teaching, and some of them are retired now. And I was like, you're too young to be retired. But in China, there is such a huge population problem. So they have, I think for women, you have to retire at the age of 50 or 55. And for men, it's 60. It's very young retirement age.
Yeah. Would you be in the government, do you think? Or would you be in business? Or what do you think if you had stayed in China?
I might have become an entrepreneur if I were in China.
So many opportunities there.
Yes.
Marciellen Champion wants to know, is there a difference between how female leaders are treated in China versus the United States?
That's another very good question. Well, okay. Chairman Mao said, women can hold up half of the sky. So in theory, women should be treated exactly the same as you know, female leaders should be treated exactly the same as male leaders.
In theory.
In theory.
Yeah.
But in practice, it's still not quite there. If you look at the top leadership in China, only 2 of them are women. And this is the political bureau. So it's, they still need to work on that.
Leslie Asalia wants to know, what do you think your leadership style is, and how has it shaped your career?
Well, I think my leadership style is, first, I'm a good listener. And if if I'm giving a project, I like to listen to what the other team members have to say,
Yeah.
and then we will have discussion, and we will come up with the best roadmap to do this project. And I find that that's more efficient, so that you can avoid some of the mistakes.
Very good. So here is R.B. Carter wants to know, how do you find the time to balance family, boards, still practice law, be a pillar of the community at Rice? How do you manage to balance all of that?
It's a little hard, and since coming to Houston, I've only had this one complaint. That is, there are only 24 hours in a day. What I try to do, I sometimes do multitasking, but of course you have to set the priority as well. I have 2 children, and when we first came, my son was 7, my daughter was 4. Now he's about to turn 21, and she's about to turn 18.
Wow.
But when they were younger, I made sure that I would drop them off at school and try to go and pick them up at school and try to spend some quality time with them. And but I explained to them that because mommy's responsibility, so sometimes mommy won't be able to stay home for dinner with them, and so the children, they are very understanding. And because I feel I also want to be a role model for them as well, and so that they can see their mother is contributing to our community, and while also caring and loving them at the same time.
I remember when you guys first moved to Houston, and it was like there was a little swing set or something in the front yard of the president's house, and it was so fun to see that there. It was, and your son, where did he end up going to college?
He is at Rice of the North.
Harvard?
Yes.
And where does your daughter want to go to college?
Well, she hasn't made up her mind yet, but she's very interested in Trinity.
Oh, really? In San Antonio?
In San Antonio.
Yeah, so she's liking Texas, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Trinity is a great school too, isn't it? So, so here's Ruth Gatumbi wants to know, how did you face potential board burnout when you served more than 8 years on that board at United Way? Did you feel a little burnt out after? Because you're back there again.
I'm back. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
Well, for the United Way board, I don't feel the burnout because the things they're doing, they're helping our families. I'm also on the Thrive Council at United Way.
Yeah.
And just to see firsthand what United Way, along with other nonprofit organizations, can do to help the families in need to learn financial stability and getting them better jobs and education. And some of them have purchased houses, and that's really very rewarding. And so sometimes when I get home tired, and I just think about the people that our nonprofit organizations have touched, and it just gets me going. And the next day when I get up, it's another great day.
Wow. John St. Mary wants to know, is there anything that you learned through your education in China, or what did you learn in your education in China that you bring to your positions while you serve at Rice and while you serve on other boards?
I learned how to respect the older people. I know America is a culture, sort of, if you are young, you're strong, but in China, we really respect the older generation. We try to learn from their experiences, and I feel my first teacher was my grandmother. she taught me how to be a good person, how to treat other people right. And
have we lost that in the United States in some way, do you think?
Well, some families are still continuing the tradition, but because of the family structure is somewhat different. See, I was brought up by my grandparents, and here in the United States, more so in China, the current days too, you have nuclear families, so you don't really have the benefit of the grandparents living under the same roof.
Yeah, so it's. I think that's an interesting dynamic too. I wonder what we lose by not having our families or honoring our families as much. It's a very interesting thing. This is Tiffany Elaine wants to know, as a woman, do you find your leadership style is often compared to or questioned because of your husband's leadership role? I mean, is that something that you find?
Well, for me, actually, I don't really feel that.
Yeah.
Because I know that my responsibility by serving on the board, it is I have to participate, and so maybe initially when they invited me, they thought that, oh, you know, she's the wife of the vice president, but once you are on the board, it's you. You have to perform, and if I am also the believer that once you say you are doing something, you do it. Once you make a promise, you keep your promise.
Yeah.
Lots of people will say, oh, we just want to borrow your name. It's okay if you don't do anything. No, if I chair something, I do the work.
Yeah.
For Teach for America, my husband and I, we chaired for the last year benefit. Co-chair with Lydia and James Chow, and we raised $1.3 million for Teach for America.
Wow.
And so,
I need to have you chair one of my events, Bing. I mean, that's a lot of money. That's good. But that, I think what's interesting, though, is that the community, though, sees you. I think the community sees you more than they see David, right? Yes. I think you are in the community more. And David may be in Rice's eye more, but I think for a lot of us in the community, when we see you, we think of Rice because you're the person who's out there and on boards and volunteering. And you are seen as a very significant leader in our community, and it's a wonderful thing. Michelle McClinton wants to know, well, she said, I love your humble attitude and your view of leadership as being a servant. She wants to know what keeps you grounded. Interesting, huh? Not easy.
That's a very good question. What keeps me grounded is where I am from.
Yeah.
I feel like I often remind myself that being born in China, coming to this country, and I'm very grateful to this country for all the opportunities I've had. And so, a humble beginning, and that really kept me grounded. And also, I feel gratitude. Like at Princeton, I belong to the 100% club. Ever since I graduated, I've given to Princeton and Columbia. So now to other organizations as well. I feel like the only reason why I am where I am today was because I had a great education at Princeton.
Yeah.
So now it's my turn to give back to Princeton so that someone else like me could have an opportunity to come to attend Princeton.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Crystal Robinson wants to know, do you feel challenges are frustrating, or do you see challenges as an opportunity to advance, or both?
Well, sometimes it can be sort of frustrating, but I always see challenges as opportunities. It's just like if you take Chinese 2 words for crisis. 危机 Wei means danger. Ji means opportunities. So that's the mentality I have. I feel there is never a problem. There is always a solution. And so to me, I welcome challenges.
Yeah. And I think that whole idea of the crisis, danger and opportunities, right? I think it's, that's so significant.
That's what I love about Houston, the can-do spirit, right?
Yeah, I wanted to mention this earlier, right? Because that's an interesting thing, right? I mean, we think many people who've lived in Houston forever, you know, they hear people talk about Houston, but Houston does have a very different attitude than other cities like New York and around the country, Dallas.
Right.
I mean, there is, really is, and I think we saw that during Hurricane Harvey, right?
Yes.
This whole idea of like, we're going to get it done, right?
Right. People helping each other.
Yeah.
And I was at NRG and over the weekend, and the people volunteering there was, on my shift, there was a lawyer from ExxonMobil, there was an accountant, there was a young lady who was a political appointee under Obama administration, just came home. And so just the people.
That was Diana Zarzuelo. That was the Obama appointee. I know who that was, from at NRG, yeah.
So there was just an amazing group of people, you know, helping the people in need.
Yeah, very nice. So Ashley Yarborough is wondering, United Way is such a large organization. So when you're on the board of an organization that has so many functions, what are the big challenges for you as a board member?
Get to know all the sort of agencies, and you know, United Way itself also supports so many other agencies. So I have to confess, I don't know all the agencies that well. But also by when you serve on the board, what you will do is you will be asked to work on one or two committees. In my case, it's the Thrive Council. And so by delving in depth in a couple of areas, so you will be more effective.
Excellent. What was your biggest challenge adapting? This is, I don't know her name. What was your biggest challenge in adapting to American culture?
This is such a good question. For me, speaking up.
Oh.
It was very hard for me at the beginning. And I remember even at school, at first, you know, to speak up in public. And it's okay, I feel very comfortable, like after the class I will go and ask professor questions, but to speak up in front of the whole class, that was very hard for me. But eventually I just forced myself to basically train myself to speak up.
Afshan Malik wants to know, have you encountered any situations that were challenging for you as a Chinese woman during your academic or professional career?
Academic, yes, because of the language differences. Some classes, I had more problems with some classes than others, and I remember first class calculus. Since I went to a boarding school for foreign language, they decided at the time we didn't need math or physics or chemistry, so I didn't have any. So when I got to Princeton, everybody was taking calculus, and I didn't even have high school math. So I went to a local high school and learned math, and then during the summer, I went home. My parents got me a tutor. I learned middle school math, high school math, and I came back and took calculus.
And you were ready?
Yes, I was ready.
Oh, I don't know that I would have been able to do that. Another question, how much does board participation vary across organizations, and why do you think that is? That's an interesting question.
That is a very good question. I think each board, most boards, they have like maybe four meetings in a year, and then they have committee meetings, depends on how many committees you served on. I think for Texas Children's, I serve on 3 other committees, so we have quite a number of meetings. And I guess I don't have a very good answer to this question. It all depends on how the staff and the board chair, they will decide how many meetings to have and what kind of committees to have, who will be serving on which committee.
Yeah.
And it's all depends on individual organizations.
So what do you feel like in the organizations that have had the highest participation in terms of the board, what do you think it is that makes it more interesting to be a board member? Is it what the organization does? Is it how the meetings are run? What are some of the important things for you around that?
To me, the most important thing is to discuss the substance and try to help an organization to clarify their mission and their goal. I don't think we need to, as board member, you don't need to get into the daily details, but it's the big picture, the direction of an organization. That's very important.
Yeah, excellent. Stacy McKenzie wants to know, what is your criteria for choosing a board to join?
That's a very good question. First, I will ask, do I have the time? Okay, if I have the time, even if sometimes I don't have the time, but this is a wonderful organization, and are they impacting people's lives? And that's a big criteria. And the other criteria is it good for Rice University?
Oh, yes.
And but of course, whatever I do in the community, I need to get permission from our chairman of the board of Rice University as well. And so those are the criteria. And also sometimes I look at the other people serving on the board, whether I will be enjoying working with them. That's important too.
Wow.
And to see whether this is related to my passion.
Okay, excellent. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, someone's asking again about your passion. Well, we've talked a little bit about that. What aspects of your identity influence your work the most? Mara Hartzell wants to know this.
My identity.
Your identity, yeah.
Well, it depends, I guess. Sometimes I feel I'm playing the lawyer's role. Sometimes the mother's role, and sometimes a Rice University representative role. And but I feel whatever I do, whichever role, it's sort of has a bigger effect. I always ask myself whether this is the right thing. If this is the right thing to do, you know, I feel good about it. At the end of the day, I can say, okay, I did something good today. And so that's how I do it.
Dominique Henson wants to know, what do you think is the most significant barrier to female leadership?
Well, this is it will be a long discussion. I think I view it from an individual point of view. Being a woman, sometimes we might be a little bit reluctant to speak up. to ask for a promotion or to ask for a leadership role to say that I can do this. Of course, this is an individual side. And then the societal side. And there is still this myth that a man is viewed a better leader than a woman.
Yeah.
So we need to start really educating our young people and make them realize that both men and women can be effective leaders, and it's not determined by gender.
That's right. Excellent. So Christopher Weiser has an interesting question. Over the time that you've been at Rice, that you've been in Houston, how have you seen your style, your leadership style? How has it changed over the years?
I think as the time goes on, I sort of realize that I can get benefit from more organizations or more people and draw their experiences more. Because when we first got here, I didn't know that many people. So my goal was to get to know as many people as possible. And also as a leader, I felt like now I'm even a better listener and a fast listener, much faster than at the beginning. Because at the beginning, we were new, so I needed time to learn the landscape and learn about the people, different organizations. And now I think I'm also able to play a role of a connector and try to connect one organization to another organization and to see the collaboration. So basically more effective.
And that's something that tends to work well in Houston too, that whole connecting collaboration. There seems to be a lot more openness, right, to doing that. I mean, you still find a few people who don't play well with others, but mostly it's a very collaborative, which is really nice.
More people realize that if they collaborate, they can achieve more.
Yeah. And that's something that comes with experience, right? And as you know people and you develop those relationships. That listening part, I think, is such a good thing for leaders to understand, this whole idea of listening. I think too many people understand being a leader just means talking and directing, but listening may be the most important thing. And the other thing that I think, Ping, sometimes is I've had a lot of women leaders, and they'll talk about that as being the most important thing. And it's something I think I've learned from doing these interviews, right? Is this idea that leadership can be, that listening can be so powerful.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. Well, some people mistake arrogance as leadership.
Yeah.
You know, some people like to take charge and say, okay, you do this, you do this, you do this, without even trying to figure out who is good at what. So if you listen to people first and figure out, okay, so-and-so is good at A and so-and-so is good at B, and then you can be more effective as a leader.
Yeah, never mistake arrogance for leadership. Yeah, very good. So a few fun questions as we wrap up tonight, Ping. So your favorite restaurant in Houston?
Oh, Pepper Twin.
You like the Pepper Twins?
I love the Pepper Twin.
Yes, I love that place. That's near my house.
Oh.
And it's, I mean, within walking distance, right?
Yes.
And not a lot of people know about Pepper Twins.
Oh, it's so good. Now they have a new location on Kirby.
Oh, I've not been there. Yeah, I still go to the one
I
over
was
at
there
Fairview.
yesterday.
Wow, very good. What great food is the Pepper Twins, huh? Yeah.
Spicy.
And when you bring friends from out of town, do you take them to Pepper Twins? Is that your favorite, one of your favorite places to take them?
Well, when people come from out of town, I take them to Hugo's. Tex-Mex.
Yeah. That's right next to my house. So you're like all in my hood right over there. So what is your favorite place in Houston that maybe not a lot of people know about? Like a little place.
What?
Not a restaurant, just any place. Yeah.
Any place. Well, I think, well, of course, I love this little place on Rice campus, actually.
Which place is that?
At the Shepherd School of Music, they have little inner courtyards. It's just so peaceful and wonderful there.
Yeah. There's a lot of little places around Rice that people don't realize are open to the public.
Oh, yes.
The James Turrell, which is right
Yes.
there at Rice.
Sky Space.
Just going into the main courtyard where the statue of William Rice is
Right.
beautiful. It's a great place to walk around in. And a lot of
Yes.
people don't know that they could just go in there and walk around.
We are open to the public.
Yeah.
And we also have lots of concerts free of charge to the public. And so we welcome our neighbors to come to Rice.
And then the final question, who's your leadership idol? Who is someone who you look as like, wow, that was a great leader?
My leadership idol, well, I'll give you a Chinese one.
Sure.
And it was Premier Zhou Enlai. He was such a wonderful person. He was the consummate diplomat. He was amazing, very kind to people, and but he was very well read, and he was just amazing leader.
And then do you have an American leader as well, or is it just the one?
American leader, well, it's I have to say it was Abraham Lincoln.
Ah, Abraham Lincoln, very good.
Yes.
You know your leaders, very good. So Ping Sun is a great leader in the Houston community, and she's been our guest today here on the Nonprofit Leadership Studio. Thank you so much, Ping, for
Thank you,
being
Bob.
here. Yeah.
And thank you to all the students.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to thank them too. So anyway, thank you guys very much, and we'll see you next time. Work hard. We'll see you next time here at the Nonprofit Leadership Studio.